So I'm here with Jay King, and it's been kind of an interesting day, interesting couple of days for Celtics Twitter and just kind of everybody who pays attention to the team. Just kind of keeping an eye on the Sacramento Kings and the situation that's going on with DeMarcus Cousins. Apparently, he blew up at Coach George Karl. Lots of rumors swirling about what went down there. And Boogie's been a guy that the Celtics have had some interest in, allegedly. And obviously, he's kind of that superstar that the Celtics have talked about getting for a while, and the kind of superstar they've talked about gathering assets for. One of those assets is the Brooklyn Nets pick. And Jay, I'm curious to get your thoughts. How much do you think the Celtics value that pick? And if it turns out that DeMarcus Cousins was available, is that the kind of deal that the Celtics might trade that pick for?
Well, first of all, that pick is one of the best trade chips in the entire league. Not just is it a possible number one, number two, number three pick in a draft that looks like it has at least two or three very good players in it. But it's also in a year when the salary cap is rising, so that first round picks are even bigger bargains than normal. So I mean that's an enormous chip. Brooklyn looks awful to start the season, although they did beat Houston to get their first win. That's going to be a very, very good pick, probably top five, and really one of the best picks in trade chips in the entire league. That being said, if a guy like DeMarcus Cousins becomes available, you have to think about that because he is the star. And with Cousins, it would be a complicated discussion, I think, because he has some serious – he has left behind a trail of friction with coaches, with the front office, with everybody. And, I mean, his character issues are real. Like, George Karl clearly didn't like him. He's a great, great player, but his character issues are real. The Celtics have built an environment where chemistry and culture is very important to them. I don't know how he fits into that. I don't know if his talent trumps that. Obviously, he's one of the best centers in the league. But that would be a complicated discussion for a lot of reasons because that draft pick is so good and Cousins is such a volatile guy.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where you have a piece that's as valuable as that pick, and you don't want to just throw it away if it turns out that Cousins is just going to wreck everything. I mean, that's a huge loss if it turns out that Cousins isn't going to work out with the Celtics. I do think it's worth noting that one of the few places where Cousins actually had some semblance of sort of continuity, as kind of stability, was Kentucky, where Calipari loves Cousins, or at least he seems to in everything that he says. It would be interesting to see what Brad Stevens could do as far as offering that stability, offering that kind of place of being a good coach, of having a good coach, of having a coach who can put the team in a good situation around him. I think that would be an interesting thing to see, but like you said, it would be kind of a gamble, and I'm not sure that you want to gamble with a piece as valuable as that pick. Just kind of from what you can tell, and just kind of in your estimation, how much do you think that having Stevens would help Cousins? Just as a player.
I'm worried about giving him that excuse of like he's a grown man. He should not. His behavior should not be dependent upon what's going on in the Kings organization, who coaches him, whatever. The fact that he's battled now with 4 or 5 coaches, whatever it is, and hasn't found a good fit with apparently any of them is a serious issue, and that goes back to him. Like, it's time to stop giving him that excuse of he hasn't had a good environment. Yeah, maybe, being in a good environment can limit what type of issues he poses. Maybe Stevens could do that. Definitely Boston would be a much more stable place than Sacramento has been for the start of his career. But it would be a real risk because he's not an easy guy to deal with. We've seen that for years and years. But he is great, and he would be a star. And obviously, if he does hit the market, that would be enticing on a lot of levels.
Definitely, and it would be pretty difficult to watch Ben Simmons go somewhere else and to think to yourself, man, that guy could have been a Celtic, and especially with picks coming up in 2017 and 18 that could be almost as good, if not better than this year's pick. Jay, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.